you're the entrepreneur, but you're also an artist, and you're trying to be commissioned by people whose only claim to fame is that they can pay this huge bill. But you actually have the taste to want to do it right. How does that all fit together?
I have a lot of people that have no taste.
I know that because that's the world we live in.
It's just, and I guess that's come part of my New York upbringing is where I'm not afraid to tell you it's going to look terrible, and they have to trust you. That's why they're hiring you. That's why they put you in that position. That's why they bring you in. They pay me to think, not to dig holes.
This is In Conversation with Frank Schaeffer, and today my guest is Steve Griggs, and Steve is a creatively candid craftsman and landscape designer who has appeared on Bravo's Backyard Envy and has been featured in Forbes, Huffington Post, and the Wall Street Journal. Steve is a two-time recipient of the Inc. 5000 Award and the author of the book Straight Dirt, New York City Premier Designer Tells It Like It Is, which I have been reading this morning. And I told Steve a moment ago, it's like eating candy in the sense that, we do a lot of books, but we've never done a book that is physically more beautiful than this. It's just crazy.
Thank you.
And we will share the link so people can find it and look at what I'm talking about after they watch this, and your breath will be taken away because Steve is a wonderful designer and has an incredible sense of materials and place and geography and so forth and so on. I've lived in the same 1835 house for the last 47 years. And when I was in Switzerland, growing up in a little Swiss village, being homeschooled by parents who I've been telling the story in my books and memoirs, so that's a different story. But let's put it this way. I ran wild, and one of my friends in the village was the village stonemason. So I grew up, I might as well have been apprenticed to him from about 5 through age 20. I went to boarding schools, but every time I'd come back, I'd work for him. So I do masonry. I work with stone. I had a couple 100 tons of rock has gone through my garden where I build walls for my pleasure, raised gardens, and so forth. I'm not a designer like you, but I know this is presumptuous, but I've done enough hands-on building in stone and carpentry and landscaping on a beautiful old property with granite outcroppings that, Frederick Olmsted would have loved. And so that when I look at what you do, I can feel it in my hands. And I know the difference between really wonderful materials and not. And so I just want to tell you that as someone who does that for pleasure and has done a lot of it over the years, I bring a sensitivity to what you've done, which really excites me. I mean, I just love those pictures and I love what you write about it. So with that introduction, Steve, it's a real pleasure to have you. Thanks for being on.
Thank you, Frank. Yeah, you do stonework for a hobby.
I do stonework for a hobby. In fact, and one of the things, I don't join a gym. I just build more Ligurian Italian retaining walls on a flat surface, retaining nothing but raised vegetable beds. But I do the masonry and occasionally put a brick in or a piece of cut stone in the granite, which is what the farmers do, because those walls aren't like New England dry walls where everything is supposed to match. Basically, they're taking bits and pieces of ruined villages and rebuilding them into a retaining wall so their olive grove doesn't collapse into the Mediterranean. And I love that style. And that's what I do. So for the last 20 years, I've been building stone walls and putting things in them. And right now, this summer, I've just finished a big rose garden that I haven't put the roses in. That'll be next spring. But it's about 4 feet off the ground with a staircase up to it and an arch in the staircase. So it's right out of your playbook.
Beautiful. Yeah, it's going to be nice talking to you, someone that knows a little bit about landscaping.
Yeah, and I know nothing about it professionally. But so let me just start with this. You're living in New York City. So you're in Frederick Olmsted's backyard. Two of my favorite places are Central Park and also Acadia, which is north of me here in New England. So let's just sort of start there. It's a weird place to start, but you're a landscape architect designer who who's doing something in a city that is famous for the work of design and parks. And I want to know both how that's informed your work, but also what were your beginnings? Because you started somewhere and it wasn't doing these high-end fabulous properties you're doing now. Tell me a little bit of your story. I love that you dedicated your book to your wife. I dedicate all my work to my wife as well. So we're in the same ballpark there. But what's your story? How do you become who you are?
So first we do work in New York City, but most of our work is in the suburbs outside of New York City, where there's grass, there's trees. I mean, I went to college for landscape architecture. Started young. My dad was a construction worker in Manhattan, so I've been around the construction industry pretty much my whole life. Dad come home with dirty work boots on, fall asleep on the couch, get up at 4:30 in the morning, and go to Manhattan and work in freezing cold, super hot weather. So
Yeah.
yeah, no, it started off just basically mulching beds, right, cutting flowers and doing smaller jobs. And over time, after doing, you know, just showing up on time, saying what you're going to do when you say you're going to do it, you built a reputation for being a guy with integrity. So
Yeah.
that basically leads to referrals, and then you end up doing their parents' homes, their kids' homes, and then they move and you do their second home. So most of our work is referral based.
Sure. When you began, you were doing things on a much smaller scale. What were the steps that took you to working with people that had the budgets to do what some of those pictures represent? And I'm not pegging you as simply working for the wealthy, but nevertheless, there had to be a process there. Was it the quality of the work that spoke for itself, or did you get lucky at some point and work for somebody that had those connections and then you grew from that? How did that work?
There's no luck. It wasn't hard, just hard work, showing up every day and being consistent.
Yeah,
Just being consistent. Like I said, doing the jobs on time and on budget, and your word is your bond. And that basically just builds up and you just get the larger and larger jobs. Because I get a lot of Instagram DMs saying, how do you get the big jobs? And you
yeah,
just have to have patience. You're not going to come right out and start out doing these huge jobs. And it's
right.
really a team effort. Like, as you know, doing stonework, I'm not a stonemason.
Yeah,
I tell you where the wall should go and how it should look, but the craftsmen are the guys that do the work. And I
sure.
know, how old are you, Frank?
I am 73.
I mean, come on, man. Look at that. You're like a rock. You're like, and doing stonework
Yeah,
beats the gym anytime. I've
excellent.
had guys, college kids work for me in the summer, and they, big, strong guys.
Yeah,
And by the end of a day of landscaping, carrying rock, and they're exhausted. So
that's it.
it's a good workout for sure.
Yeah, yeah. I do about 2 hours a day and all in the early morning before the sun is up in the summer because you know what happens later. So I don't do the heat of the day stuff, but I must say it beats a gym. I have a question, and I'm not trying to flatter you, but um, somebody listening to us will not know what your work looks like and your sense of design, but I do because I've just gone through the book. And by the way, Ernie, we have to make a huge effort to try to get our people to look at these pictures by not just link to his work, but people really have to see what you do. Um, you're an artist, and this work is not just landscaping and design. It's gorgeous. So I want to know, did your father ever have the opportunity to use whatever genetically you inherited in his line of work? Or are you the son of a working guy who worked for other people, but somewhere with your parentage or your life, you become an artist. This is not just design work. It has a stamp on it. There's not a sameness to it. But after I started looking at the pictures, there's a rhythm to this work. And this is, you're talking very straightforward meat and potatoes. People got to understand when they look at this, this is not your average landscaping work. This is gorgeous. So
Thank
that's,
you. Thank you.
and I don't know. I mean, where does that come from? How did that develop? Because that's not just the work. That's something more than that.
Well, sometimes it's like, I don't think I give myself enough credit, right? We all don't. Like, we don't. And I think it just, I don't know. I see some people like artists, some people paint, some
Sure.
people sculpt, some
Yeah.
people write music. For whatever reason, my art form is your backyard,
Yeah.
right? For whatever. So when I go to somebody's backyard, I see it before it's even built. I don't know where it came from, whatever, but I kind of see
Yeah.
it. I see the pool, I see the fire pit, I see it, right?
Yeah.
And then from there, we just basically put it on a graphical representation on a plan,
Yeah.
But that's kind of the easy part, right? The easy part is like the vision. For me, it's the easy part. The hard part is the execution. Like
Yeah.
I see a lot of designers can draw pretty pictures, but you have to be able to execute that job. Is it buildable? Can you get it in on budget? Can you get it on time? So there's a lot of different factors that go
Sure.
into creating a backyard with, many disciplines, stonemasons, sound guys, carpenters, all that has to get put together like a conductor in a musical, right? Where you
Yeah.
have to put it all together. That's kind of how I see myself.
Yeah.
I still use a spray can, Frank. I go out to the yard and I take a can of Rust-Oleum spray and I'll spray paint out the pool. I'll spray paint out the walls. That helps the clients visualize because most clients can't visualize.
Yeah. One thing that interests me is I often feel, I know this is a small detail, but you often feel that a swimming pool has sort of been dropped from outer space. It has nothing to do with the space, but your choice of materials and the way you integrate water features into what you do when there are water features is really quite amazing. Do you work with one person on that, or do you just simply find other people to carry out your ideas? Because it's not usual. You've got different kinds of stonework, different kind of masonry, but I noticed right away that these pools are not pools. They're basically like natural features within the design structure that fit with everything else. None of that happens by chance. How did you begin that part of your work?
So,
Because
so, so the swimming pool, basically, you want to, like I try to explain to you, like you want to pretend that the house was always there and the
mm,
landscape was kind of like wrapped around it and it kind of hugs the space as
yeah,
opposed to taking a house, plopping it on a lot, and then landscaping. That's why I like to be called in before the architect comes in, before they buy the lot. There may be a rock feature I want to highlight, maybe a
yeah,
beautiful tree I want to highlight. So you want to really, and I like elevations because you can create interest with the elevations, right?
yeah,
And the pool is just, it's like a center island in your kitchen, right? Like it's like the focal point of the backyard,
sure,
especially in the Northeast. Like it's not summer where you swim 12 months out of the year. It's a short time of year.
yeah,
So you want
yeah.
to be able to, design something that's aesthetically pleasing even in the wintertime.
I didn't check this feature out in the book specifically, so I'm just asking you. Sorry, I didn't pay enough attention to that part. But what's the balance between you being brought in to work on an existing property, say in an older home, and they want to do something new? Okay, here's a field that we've never used. Here's something we don't like this feature in the garden, as opposed to completely new construction.
I like the old construction, right? Because
Yeah,
anybody can just design something new. Basically, you take an old, sometimes we'll do like historic homes, right? Where you have to really be aware, like up in Connecticut. You have to be really sensitive to the surroundings, the type of
mm,
materials, the architecture plays a huge role in it. It has to fit the lifestyle of the people and the architecture. It has to all tie in together.
yeah. Now, this is going to be a weird question. I'm not trying to put you on the spot, but I'm really curious because when I talk to someone who's like a, you know, person in a university or whatever, one thing I always want to know about is their personal background. But the other thing is, we live in a country that has a very definite class system. You come from a working background. Your dad goes to work every morning. Now, as fortune would have it, the business you're in usually costs money. You have a range of people you work for. You don't only work for super wealthy people, but you do. So this is an odd question, and I don't want to put you on the spot with any of your clients, but um, I can't let this go by without asking you because you have observed human nature from an interesting point of view. You're somebody that works with your hands and your brain, or at least you're working with people who work with their hands. So you have a connection through your family to working people, and you're working
Mm.
with working people. And your job, you're talking about people's backyards. Well, when people see the book, they're going to think, well, didn't he mean estate? You're working with a very small group of people in a culture that's very divided by money and class, where those divisions get bigger. And you can be as personal as you want to here, or just move on if you don't feel like addressing this. But it just seems to me that you come from one background, you have a foot in another background.
By the way,
What?
Frank, I've been on a lot of podcasts.
Yeah,
This is cool because like I've never had these questions asked, right? And that's a very good question.
yeah. So
I know where you're
talk
getting.
as
I
much
know
as
where
you
you're
want.
getting at.
Go as
I'll
far
tell
as you
you.
want with
I
this.
will tell you whatever you want, but it took years to like grasp that, right? Like people write me checks,
Yeah,
like they're paying a phone bill. Like, and I grew up with shut the lights, can't afford this, can't afford that, and it's just mind boggling. And I
Right.
find that very intriguing. And I always like to know, like, like how do you make your money? Like, what do you? Because it's interesting as an entrepreneur. Like,
Yeah.
what do you do? Like, and most of them of super hard workers. Like you would think, oh, they just sit around. No, most of those high end people are the hardest working people ever. Like
Yeah.
crazy hard working. So don't think of it. You see these rich people that just sit around and get money, unless they stepped on a Bitcoin or something. But like
Yeah.
most of them run businesses. They have their own practices. They're in finance, but they work crazy hours. Hard
Yeah.
workers.
Yeah.
So yeah, you can dive in as deep as what you want with that money
Okay.
thing,
So,
because that's a
so
good
let's start
question.
with it really personally. You know, how do you relate to people who live in a world in which, you know, if they have a Maserati Quattroporto parked in the place you're going to build or a Bugatti, it's all one to them. And you're sitting there thinking of every design feature for their swimming pool as if you're working for God, because you're not working for them. They may or may not have the taste that reflects your taste. And I always think of artists who work for people like the Medici in Italy. Okay, you know, you're the entrepreneur, but you're also an artist, and you're trying to be commissioned by people whose only claim to fame is that they can pay this huge bill. But you actually have the taste to want to do it right. How does that all fit together?
I have a lot of people that have no taste.
I know that because you know that's the world we live in.
It's just, and I guess that's come part of my New York upbringing is where I'm not afraid to tell you it's going to look terrible, and they have
Yeah,
to trust you. That's why they're hiring you. You know, that's why they put you in that position. That's why they bring you in. They pay me to think, not to dig holes. I keep
right.
having to remind myself that, like, my job is to get them the biggest value for their property and maximize the space and
Sure.
let them enjoy and create memories for their families and all that. And I do that by just listening to them as we first do our first consultation. I just listen what they want to
Yeah.
feel like.
Yeah.
What's the feeling you want to go out when you go outside, right?
Yeah.
You want to feel like you're at the Ritz-Carlton, then I know, okay, we're thinking contemporary, clean lines, more like that. I want to feel like I'm up in Connecticut, then I think more grasses, more no-mow grass, native planting. So there's a different feeling I have to get from the client. And I get that
Yeah.
from the client. Each
Yeah.
job I do is not the same. It's
Sure.
designed specifically for that client and that family.
Yeah, but the crazy thing is when I look through your book, I know like if I walked into somebody's yard now and you had designed it, I'd know you had made it. There's a
How's that?
there's a through line. It's taste of materials, it's
Huh?
design. You don't allow some big, presumptuous, crazy, big ass thing to over, you know, you keep doing things with a certain level of taste.
Mm.
And I can imagine, you know, that people are maybe try to push you towards being more opulent sometimes, but you kind of say, no, you know, I'm going to put a stone wall there. And no, it doesn't need to be 30 feet high. And I'm not going to give you a gold pool. We're going to be putting some of the rock in it. And I don't imagine that it's a struggle, but I think you probably have to correct some of these people's presumptions about like, I've earned all this money and I want it to show. And you're sitting there saying, yeah, but I also want this to look like something that as a designer is art.
It has to look tastefully and elegant, right? It
Yeah,
has to like if I'm up in Connecticut and somebody says to me, "I want a interlocking wall," you know, those concrete wall.
sure.
It doesn't go with the environment. Let's
Right.
use some of the natural stone that's on the property, right?
Yeah,
So let's build the wall from the stone I can find on the property. So it
yeah,
becomes part of the land. Does that make
yeah,
sense?
totally.
It becomes part of it. I dig
Yeah,
up big boulders, right? We're digging a swimming pool. We find big rocks. They want to truck away. I go, don't throw those rocks out of here. Keep those rocks. I'll
yeah,
build a rock outcrop out of them, and I'll get different elevations, and then I'll put sedums in between and some creeping ground covers around it, so it looks very natural.
yeah. And you do the same thing with trees too. It's like, hey, don't cut everything down and put 2 inches of topsoil on it that never grows anything good again. This is a good tree. Keep it. And
Yes.
you can tell that you've been in on some of that because people don't always do that.
No. So I go to a builder the other day. He wanted to cut down this beech tree that was about had to be 100 years old. And
Yeah,
some people are like, what's the big deal? Just cut it down. I go, your house is going to be, I think it's like 12,000 square foot house, right?
yeah,
Big house. If
yeah,
you cut down that tree and I put a 15-foot tree next to it, it's going to look out of scale, right?
yeah,
So these big trees bring the house to scale. So everything has to do with scale also.
Yeah, which I can see. Okay, so back to the thing you said I could dive deep. Um, do you ever have a hard time relating to someone who may have inherited or they've earned so much that they're looking in a whole different way? You know, when I watch Grand Prix in Monaco, for instance, and I'm into, F1 sometimes, and I'm looking, and you see that whole row of yachts parked right at the prime spot, and they're all right there with the view, and you sort of scan people on the deck. It's not only they're living in a different world than I live in, but they're thinking differently. And I've known some super wealthy people in my life, not a lot, but I've known a couple of people who really are in that class. Um, and what you notice is that the same thing that you talk to someone who's a rock star or gets famous or becomes a politician, they're never who they were once they've lived in that environment of either power or money. And the same thing goes for surgeons. You can't hold somebody's heart in your hands for 30 years and not have that sense that, you meet a surgeon and they have that certain kind of arrogance is the wrong word, but they know who they are because they're doing life and death every day. And that changes them. They're where you meet other people who have been in a profession that is related to where they grew up. So I'm going to ask you two tough questions. How do you see your own growth as a human being moving from this working background to where you're now working with these super wealthy people and you're very successful? How has that changed you and how you relate to the people who say come from your background or your family? And then how do you relate to people who have lived in this other stratosphere of money? Do you like them? Do you dislike some people you work with anyway because you got to pay your bill? I mean, be as honest as you want to be, because I run into the same thing with some of the famous people I meet that I'm either interviewing or you meet in the course of being an author and you come in and you do a thing and you're a writer and you've been successful for 10 seconds. And so you meet all these people, but you don't like all of them because it's like, hey, you know what? I mean, from where I come from, growing up in a little village in Switzerland and working with a local mason, I don't give a shit what's parked in your driveway. And you're not impressing me because who impressed me was Mr. Bracci, who really knew how to build a wall. And I liked him better than I like you. And that's in my head.
Yeah, I think coming from a working family,
Yeah.
I appreciate the guys. I appreciate the labor. Like, I mean, those guys work super hard, right?
Yeah.
So, and you get some clients that don't even give them a glass of water.
I know. Yeah.
I don't know where you grew up, but that's not how
That's
it's
not how
done.
you do it.
That's not how you do it.
They don't let them use the bathroom. Like you got to bring a porta potty.
I bring a porta potty.
No, I know you do for your crew, but I'm just saying the attitude is somehow you're in it. You're not one of us.
Yeah. So, but you'd be surprised. Like most of the people are very relatable. Like,
well, that's good.
They're very relatable, and then if we're not a good fit, we're just not a good fit. Like
Yeah.
when I meet them, I'll know right away if the wife is all bossy and demanding, and then they want a cheaper price on top of that, you just get a bad sense, right?
Yeah.
So you kind of just say, "Thank you for the opportunity. It's just not the right opportunity," right? So
Right.
what I've had to learn over the last years is it's okay to say no, right? Because at first you just want to take any job and keep going, but later on you want to be able to say no, right? So it went from taking any job I can get to people saying, "Hey, I know who you are. I've seen your work and I want to work with you." Totally different.
Yeah. Hold the thing.
Different. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, because you're kind of I would imagine, there can't be too many people in your class of designer with the kind of budgets you're given. Which brings me to a question. Do you do any public stuff as well as private? I think of New York, I think of the conservatory gardens or, Frederick Olmsted stuff and all this kind of thing. And I'm just wondering if you're ever commissioned to do something, in a park or a corner of the Metropolitan Museum's little piece of New York or whatever it may be, or have you just stuck specifically with individuals?
So the difference with that is those bigger jobs are more like commercial work, we call them, where they go out to bid, they go out to the lowest bidder, and it's very structured. I like the residential because it's more hands-on with the client. You get to build good relationships with them. Where in a commercial setting, it's just cut and dry. So
Yeah.
I like the residential. You don't have to wait for you don't have to wait for your money. You don't have to have a bunch of people signing off on the project. You basically just you and the client, and you're the orchestrator of the whole project. You call the shots. When you
Yeah.
do those commercial jobs, it's very rigid.
When you have somebody who comes to you, because you've been in the business for a while now, how many years have you been doing this?
40.
So somebody comes to you in year 10 of your career and they've got a smaller home somewhere in Connecticut. And now all of a sudden, their company's gone public and they say, now I'm going to build the house I always wanted. And hey, Steve, come talk to me again. Do you have some repeat clients who are at a different stage of their life and can go bigger? Or
Yes. Yes. A lot, most of them.
tell me about that.
So they start off with the, 3-bedroom, 2-bath house, built it up over the years, and then they call me, hey, we moved to Short Hills, New Jersey, exclusive area. Now the house is 10,000 square feet, right? So
Yeah.
they just keep moving up the ladder. Yeah, and then we go up there and the budgets are much higher.
Yeah.
But they already know, like, and trust you, so it makes the process so much easier.
Yeah. Yeah. And okay, so circle back and then we're going to change subject. I'm not fixated on this, but it's rare you talk to somebody. The only here's an experience I had last year. Jeannie and I were in Rome and we had a wonderful time there. And I got to be friends with a head waiter, maitre d' at just a regular eating joint. And we ate there every night. We were there for 10 days. And so we didn't shop around. It's just, I like the family. And by the time we were done, they're inviting me into the kitchen to taste wine and see if I like it. And, and I'm with a wife. We're making pasta at the front of the thing. And it was a great relationship. So you're talking to this guy and he's the head guy. And in the end, he's sitting at my table with Jeannie and me, showing us pictures on his cell phone because he was the chief steward for Alitalia before they became Ita, and he always served in first class. And he was always asked for by Pope John Paul II. So he has 23 pictures in his phone of 23 trips when he is John Paul II's personal steward in first class, because he wouldn't fly on a private, Air Force One type thing. He always went commercial, but he needed the space. So here's this guy who's, quote, an ordinary person. He, quote, just a steward on an airline, but you get to know him. And all of a sudden I'm sitting there and saying, here's a guy who's probably spent more time with John Paul, and knows him. And he's got pictures of him sitting next to him, talking to him, and they're having after dinner coffee together.
Wow.
Okay. So basically, like, now all of a sudden I want to know all about everything. And he spent his whole life, not as a wealthy man, but sort of like you, serving people who are either famous or super rich, Gina Lola, whoever, in first class on her way to a movie in Los Angeles. So we had this incredible talk about the difference between, his working background in Italy and these fancy people he was serving. And he was kind of like talking to a biologist or something that's been studying some weird exotic life in a forest somewhere, and he's reporting on them like they're a different species. Like, oh yeah, when there's wealthy people, then there's the super wealthy, then there's the super wealthy plus power, political leaders, what it's like to serve them. He had the same thing to say you did, that, some of them were awful, but some of them were like really wonderful people. And he was really surprised because they'd invite him to come sit down and have a cup of coffee. Whereas some of them were like, you're just the steward and whatever. So I'm going to go in one more time and just ask you for some of your reminiscences of the worst kind of people you worked for. Don't need to name names. And some of the best people that have surprised you. And you're just thinking, holy shit, she owns the world. And, she's serving coffee to the crew out building a wall.
I find that they want to be treated fairly. They want value. They want to be treated like everybody else. Don't come in there and try to, see how much money they have and then take advantage of it, right?
Right.
We have a lot of those stories. Like, some of them are very just regular. They invite me in for the smoothies. They'll cook me hamburgers. We do a lot of work for the Orthodox Jewish people.
Yeah.
And very family oriented. I've gotten very tight with a lot of them. And when you get in a community like that, your reputation is everything because they will refer you to everybody. Sure. Right. So that's a very interesting thing. And then you get some that are not them, but just other people who are. I gotta say, I hate to say it, but sometimes it's the female partner in that duo who could be a little rough.
Yeah, the expectation is like,
the guys are usually like, all right, what she wants is fine. Just, how much is it? And let's get moving on it. And then sometimes the wives can be a little more demanding.
Tough on you.
Yeah, way tougher than the husbands. Way tougher. Way tougher. I don't know what that's about, but yeah, that would be my first inclination to answer that question.
Yeah, that's
Sure.
interesting.
Yeah, yeah.
So what, without naming names, what's the best experience in terms of a family you work for that then gives you the opportunity to do the best work you've ever done, or amongst the best work you've ever done? Really just says, hey, I trust you, get out there and do it. And then you're so happy with the job that when you're thinking, like, I've written a lot of books, but there's a couple that come to mind, like, yeah, that was my best work. And I'm still happy with it. And then the other end, the kind of worst experience where you either walk away or it's just like, hey man, yeah, I better I'm going to change. I'm going to find someone else to do.
But sometimes, you take those jobs, you don't have a crystal ball, right? So you try to look at the red flags, right?
Yeah.
So you try to sometimes you get it right, sometimes you don't.
Yeah.
And then when you get it wrong, you just want to do the best job you can and get out of there, right? You want to be finished with the job and move on. But then some of them, there was one that comes to mind particularly. We did, I think, 2 summers ago where we had to put a pool on top of a mountain, solid rock. We had to jackhammer the rock. The husband did not know how to swim, right? And then at the end of the summer, she calls me up and says, you got to come over. And then I went over there and she goes, well, I go, what's up? She goes, Dove knows how to swim. So he jumped in the pool and he showed me he's swimming his laps.
Oh, that's great.
And then she said, this was the best $500,000 I ever spent. I mean, that's rare. Like,
rare.
Usually it's like, it's a lot of money, but no, it was the best money we ever spent. That makes you feel good. That's kind of why I do what I do, right?
Yeah.
For so long. Like it's not just about the money. You want to change people's lives. And when they can say, we had weddings here at the house, and it becomes a very family-oriented thing.
Yeah, absolutely. And I would hope that some of the people will never sell that property because they love it so much. They want their kids and grandchildren to have it. It's like, no, this is not, I don't care what it's worth. This is our home now.
Yeah, this is our home. But yeah, of course, you want them to, sure, we're going to move to another town and we're going to do the same thing. And I get the phone call. That's better. But most of them stay there. After I've had people say to me, wow, before you got here, I didn't love my house. Now you're gone, I love my house. That's good too, right?
Yeah, well, I can see that turning the pages of your book. And again, Ernie, my producer, we got to find a way to show people these landscapes because it's all very well talking, but it'll take your breath away. I have a sort of a question. I've been on the same property for 45 years plus, and we live near a tidal bay, and with the super high tides, they come in. And I'm only 73, which in global geological time is like not even an eye blink. And yet I see the kind of grasses changing growing near me. I see some stands of trees that are dying because the salt content, I mean, a couple inches of tide, you don't think it makes much difference, but it does. It changes the landscape. So you're out there doing all this. And of course, there's a lot of talk about climate change and most of it in a sort of political and all that, but I'm not talking about that. I'm talking just simply in the last 40 years, in terms of, drought and rain. And if you're near the ocean, you've got that encroachment. Have you got any experience of things where you've actually seen something that's changed the way you say approach a property that's near a sand dune, or a property that is, drier than it used to be, or the water table is different? Have you seen any of that? Because I've seen it on my own property just because we've stayed in one place and we're near water.
What I've seen is the drainage. The drainage is a problem.
Yeah.
They build up these subdivisions and the runoff becomes great. So now they have all these rules in place where you have to do zero impervious runoff, meaning that hardscaping can't go into somebody's property. So we have to put these big dry well tanks in and keep all your water on the same property. Yeah. That's been big, for sure.
So you've seen some changes in the legal side of things. The change I'm talking about is mainly tidal, not so much climate, but the encroachment of salt water. Have you got many properties you worked on that are in some degree related to waterfront when it comes to ocean, or not?
Just like I said, down at the Jersey Shore a little bit, you'll see the water come up, and the storms are much more violent.
Yeah,
much more erosion. So we got to plant more sand, raise the dunes up, plant more dune grass. Try to stay development. But what is it climate change? I have no idea. But it's definitely the storms that are definitely creating a lot of havoc.
Are creative. Yeah, well, we have the same thing. I mean, we've got nearby here, there's some barrier islands like Plum Island, and some, more houses get eroded and this kind of thing than used to happen. But anyway, so getting back to what we're talking about here, have you ever been asked to teach? Have you ever done anything where someone says, hey, come to, like, for instance, near us up in Maine, there's this place on Deer Isle called Haystack, and it's this art community, but they actually have people come in and do teaching for a summer for people who are landscapes or maybe sculptors or whatever. Do you ever get into that where you mentor people?
Yes, but we just finished. There's a platform online called Upflip Academy. We just finished writing a course for them, so that's going to be on the Upflip Academy platform. Yes, that's a whole course on how to earn seven figure. I think it's how to earn seven figures in landscape design without owning a shop, something like that.
That's interesting. And then do you get into any of the kind of artistic inspiration of materials and that kind of stuff, or is it more the business side?
It's more the business and the sales and the marketing side. And I think that there's going to be a second course that caters more to the actual materials, plant materials selection. And that's a whole nother side of it, right?
Sure.
You have to know, you got to know your materials. You got to know the plants. You got to know the material. What does well here? Forget the design part. It's actually how to build a project properly, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Have you had some of your family work with you? Did you do some work with your dad while he was still doing all that? Was there a connection, or have you had any kids or relatives or people related to your work, or has it all been other people? In other words, at some point, did what you're doing become a family thing, or does your family do something different?
So my dad was actually a union construction worker in Manhattan, worked for big construction. Sure. And then in the 70s, when New York was broke, he'd get laid off a lot. And I remember he would trim people's bushes, right? That's how I got started, trim people's bushes. He would take me there and he would show me how to do it. And I ended up doing it. He would come back and pick me up a few hours later.
Yeah.
That's how I got the entrepreneurial part. But family members?
Not so much.
One's a writes music, lyrics for music and lyrics. I got two sons in business, and my wife is like, don't want them in the business. I see them at home. And no, they work for me in the summers, and they're like, this is not for us. Yeah.
They basically, a couple of days of heat, and it's like, we're off. We're going to do something else.
I feel like I'm very strong on this. I'll hire clients, kids all the time.
Yeah.
Rich clients, like, put him to work. He needs to learn what it's like to work.
Yeah.
I see that a lot.
Yeah. And do some of those guys work out well?
They're just summer interns that kind of just, realize that, that, wow, this is hard work, right? So I think the people that have the money want to teach their kids work ethic, right?
Yeah.
A little physical labor. I think every kid in America should work at least a summer doing landscape, carrying rocks, digging, and really appreciating what it's like to have to really work and grind. Because most of these guys that work, they have families and they have to support their family, and they don't make a ton of money, so they show up at work every day, no matter what. So I think teaching the younger generation good work ethic is super important.
Yeah, no, that's great. And actually, probably some of those kids now, you've been doing this 40 years, look back and say, that was the summer I learned how to do.
I said that guy was a son of a bitch.
But he made me work. But now, it basically.
But I learned that working from summers as well. When I was growing up, I worked for a couple of big construction guys in the city, and same thing. Like, just get the job done, no excuses, and that's it. Just get the job done. Nobody wants to hear the problems.
Yeah. No, I always associate that, you see a guy wearing a hard hat on the edge of a construction site in New York City, and you kind of know what you're looking at. It's a type, and you sort of get the job done, and, no fooling around. It's a certain type of person. I have somebody that comes in and helps me sometimes do some cutting and stuff, and he's a fireman. He's a former Marine. My son was in the Marine Corps, so, there's a connection there. But it's like, you never have to check that this is getting done. Yeah. It's done. And and you always wish, like, his name is Josh, and I always wish everybody was like Josh. Like, you could just, Josh will show up, it'll be done right, it'll be cleaned up, it'll be done. And, it's, my mom used to say, if you want to find someone that does a good job, find someone who's already too busy. In other words, like they're doing stuff. And he's a fireman, he does landscaping, he cleans, does stuff. And then if he's very busy, and of course, then he always takes the time to do it right.
Very good, very good. So one of my sons interned for one of my clients in New York City over the summer. When your kids are growing up, they just kind of yes you to death. I kind of yes you, but I guess. And at the end of the summer, he texts me and he says, "I could see the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. I wish all my interns were like this." Right?
Yeah.
So that's good. So I must have instilled. You must
have gotten something right.
Something. You must have seen something that I do.
Yeah. Yeah. That's great. That's really good. Now, the kids are how old now? Your children, and how many?
One in Chicago. He's 27. I have one finishing up at Penn State. He's a senior.
That's great. And what is he studying?
Business. And
what about the one in Chicago?
He's business also.
And when you say business, like what I never.
One's in supply chain management, and the other one was in like marketing business.
Yeah, and doing well.
Yeah, young guy.
They're starting out, but basically they're happy with what they're doing.
Yeah, got to get them out of the house.
Get them out of the house. Exactly right. Get
them out of the house. Let them, And then my one son, they rented a house off campus with their buddies, and he's, I have bees in the side of the house. Like they just, it's good for them to learn a little bit about having a house.
Yeah, and how to function. That's right.
How to function. Yep.
Yeah, functioning's good. So then how big a crew do you work with on a typical job? Do these guys stay with you the whole time? Do you hire people when you do the work, or do you have a crew that's always with you?
So for many, many years, we had the 20 guys, the overhead, the labor, the machines, the trucks. And then we segued into more of a design, owner's rep, project management model. It's much better because we find a lot of the other hands-on companies are more interested in, they're more technicians, and they don't have the business side of it.
Yeah.
So the client communication and lead times and job schedules and budgeting. So we've segued into that, and that allows me to travel all over the country doing other jobs, and I could just vet different contractors. I know good work when I see it. We bring them on.
Yeah.
As trade partners, and I can pick the best masons. I can pick the best sound guys, the irrigation guys, the lighting guys. So it enables me to have a better, highly trained crew. Instead of, you can't do everything great. Like you can't, guys that cut flowers great, and they also cut the grass, and you can't. You have to specialize. So we use specialized tradesmen.
Yeah, that's interesting. When you put your crews together, do you use different people depending on the different job? Or, do you have some go-to guys that you've worked with practically through your whole career who are kind of aging along with you?
Same crews for like 20 years.
That's great.
Core guys, yeah.
That's really good. And so probably they're only working with you, or do they work with other people too?
So the job for me is to keep them fed, right?
Yeah, keep them fed, right.
Keep them fed, pay them quickly, pay them well, because you're in this together. Like, you don't want to be a contractor that hires the guy, beats him up on price, and the guy makes no money. Because if something goes wrong, you need to come back. So you want to treat them fairly, help them be efficient. A lot of times they're not efficient.
Yeah.
Why are you taking your truck 20 miles to pick up dirt when I can make a phone call and get it here in 20 minutes for $100 delivered? So I teach them where to buy the material. Wholesales out in Pennsylvania. Go to the growers for the plant materials. Everybody has a little niche, especially with the trees. Sometimes I've got to say, but we got the trees.
Do you ever get into following some of the other people who do what you do in other parts of the country or the world? Do you stay connected with that? Keep an eye on that, for inspiration, but also just see who the competition is? Or basically, are you kind of in your own, you do your thing, you've got your clients. Is this something where you need to be aware of what else is going on out there? Like if someone refers, hey, they saw something like this, and like there's a British garden designer who's very famous in the United Kingdom that I watch sometimes, his stuff on YouTube, called Monty Don. And he has this program where he goes around and helps people for whatever budget they have, envision what they could do with their garden. And sometimes he gets paid, but sometimes it's just for this show. And I always joke with my wife that whenever he advises some couple on a small budget to put in a water feature, I said, and then there's another marriage he just ruined. It's like you can have a fountain in your garden. And I'm thinking, this doesn't fit. And how are you supposed to do that? And do they know enough about pumps and all the rest of it? But do you follow any of this kind of stuff? Because there's a huge online world about gardening and tours and famous gardens. And then Monty Don has his show in England. I don't know what else goes on in America like that, but are you into that stuff or do you just not care?
Monty Don?
Yeah.
I have to check him out.
Well, you don't need, believe me, I've seen his work and I've seen yours. You've got nothing to learn, but I'm just curious, like, because I don't follow a bunch of other writers. I'm a writer and I do my thing, and Ernie Gregg produces my podcast, but I don't listen to 10 podcasts to see what other people are doing. I just do my thing. But I wonder if there's people out there, say some designer in Los Angeles or whatever, that you've known over the years, either traded things with, like ideas, or worked with, or have inspired you or whatever. Is there anybody else out there on your radar?
Like that, a couple architects. This guy went in out of Austin, Texas, high-end, super contemporary homes.
Yeah,
he texts me pictures of his backyard. Hey, Steve, what do you think about doing this? I'll help him out. So, but I don't really follow anyone. I don't want to try to No, I don't want to really see what the competition is doing. That'll just be.
You're just doing your thing.
Do my thing.
Yeah, that's very cool. So, like right now, what stage are you at in terms of, like, I'm 73, so basically I'm still writing, I'm still working, I do new projects, but, I don't need to break new ground all the time to keep things moving forward. Like, how would you see the arc of your career? Like, your kids are grown now, you're doing your thing. How's that all play out for you?
If I had to stay home with the wife all day, she'd
kill you.
She'd kill me.
Yeah, no, my wife's very happy I'm still doing stuff. I mean, it's like, no, go to your office and do some work.
Yeah, even in the winter, with a little downtime in the winter, I'm around the house a lot. She goes,
yeah.
Yeah.
No, I understand.
So no, I'm 65. We just
you're in good shape. You could say that you're in your 40s and I'd have to believe you. So whatever you're doing right. So when you do a job, are you out there with them, or do you have a foreman who goes out there and checks it out for you, or do you have to, how many do you have going at once?
5 or 6.
Yeah.
5 or 6. It depends the logistics of the proximity. We try to bunch them close together. So we have project manager, but the clients are paying for me. Like, they don't want to see, they want to see my face.
Yeah.
They don't want to come over there and move a couple of things around. Like, they want it perfect. And the contractors, even though we have a plan, it changes, right? I change the plan all the time.
Yeah.
Whatever, right? So that gives me the flexibility to become creative on the fly.
Yeah.
It's not great. In some aspects, it slows the job down, but they all know how I work. The contractors, they won't plant a tree till I come to the job site and kind of sign off on the location of everything. So yeah, my fingerprints on it all. You have to do.
Yeah. Let me reintroduce you here for somebody who may not have been with us earlier. This is Steve Griggs. He's a premier landscape designer, architect, artist, generally in the New York area and New Jersey, I guess, the shore and all the rest of it. And he's got a book that I have read and love, and we're going to link to so you can enjoy it. It's basically an art book if you love landscape architecture, but it's an art book for anybody because the pictures are just stunning. So the book is called Straight Dirt, New York City's Premier Designer Tells It Like It Is, and we'll link to it. And then this is In Conversation with Frank Schaeffer. I'm Frank Schaeffer, and I'm asking you to subscribe now on YouTube, where this shows up live and then replays, and also to Frank Schaeffer on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, and to my Substack, It Has to Be Said commentary page at frankschaeffer.substack.com. And you can also follow my new project, which is called The Gospel of Zip, at thegospelofzip.com. So let me get back to you, Steve, here and ask now, in terms of things you've done already and what you would like to do, is there anything out there where you haven't done a project where, I'm just fishing around here, but let's just say it was to create a dock and a boathouse that's incorporated into, something that you've always fancied doing that hasn't happened yet? Or basically, if you look back over all these things and all these incredible pictures you've got in your book, does that represent, a career in design that has satisfied you, or there's still some things you'd like to see done, and you're hoping for a client to come along and say, hey, I live in the desert and you've always wanted to do cactus?
Yeah, by the way, as far as the book, I don't know if you have the digital copy, but you can certainly put that in the show notes, the digital link to the book.
Yeah.
So same color version of the book. You can send that out, whatever.
Yeah.
I'd like to go to the Caribbean. I'd like to do a nice job in the Caribbean, just the logistics of it, right? The logistics, getting everything out on a boat, sending it, so that would be the answer to your question. That
would be very cool. Okay, now here's a question sort of that's going to come up with people watching this, most of whom are not zillionaires, but who are interested, and a lot of whom are artists and writers and have very interesting tastes. So I'm not putting you on the spot, but I'd like to ask you this. Let's just call those of us who would not be your clients because we don't have the budget. The normals, the normals.
By the way, I do a lot of normals.
It's just but when I look at the book, I'm not going to commission a $500,000 swimming pool anytime soon.
You can do, I've done $5,000 jobs on a rooftop in Manhattan on somebody's balcony, right? So the design has to fit the lifestyle. Like you were saying, the guy in Montdown, whatever. You don't want to have a $200,000 ranch house in the middle of Kansas with this giant waterfall in the back. It doesn't fit. So you want to design something that fits the house and fits their budget. Right?
Well, talk about some of the smaller jobs, because I can see that from the book as well, but I know that you do that. So talk about some of the more modest things that you've done. And I guess the second part of that question is what are the best choices that people can make to turn whatever space you have, be a balcony in Manhattan or a small backyard, into what I'll call your own sanctuary, your own space. Give me some advice for people.
Here it is. Love the sound. I need to have water and fire on every job. Right? So for the modest ones, you can just simply go to Amazon and get yourself a little plug-in fountain. You see those big urns that gurgle over? Make the sound of the water, right?
Yeah.
Fire, you can simply go online and buy yourself a propane fire pit. Right?
Yeah.
Then you get the same effect as a fireplace. Same with the swimming pool. I tell people they get just as wet in a Walmart blow-up pool as you do in a $300,000 pool. If you're floating in a raft, it doesn't matter. Right?
Yeah.
And like the patios can be you can use just simple pea gravel. Right? You don't need stone patio. You can have pea gravel. Right? Outdoor kitchen, same thing. You get a simple outdoor kitchen cart. And it's basically and potted plants are very good too for around the patio. You buy those containers from Home Depot or Lowe's, and you get those hanging baskets with all the beautiful flowers. You cut the hangers off and you stick the whole thing in the container, and it's already overflowing. Those are the quick, easy fixes. And then you get some nice annual flowers if you have to plant them. They give you that color, right? So you don't have to spend $1 zillion. Absolutely. Yeah. Tastefully, it has to be done right. Like if you could do a small space, very cheap, tastefully, it's all the difference in the world.
Yeah, and I love the idea of the water feature, and the sound of the water is the whole thing, isn't it?
That's the whole thing. It's just the sound. You don't need a 20-foot waterfall gushing into your backyard. It's the sound.
Yeah, that's very smart.
Plant material, like grasses blowing in the wind, fragrant viburnum, butterfly bush attracts butterfly bush. So same cost of the plant, you just get the right plant.
Yeah. And for people looking for the source and the right thing, where can they get you're giving some very good advice. Where can people follow up on that kind of a thing? Maybe that's your next book.
You can just DM me at Steve Griggs Design. If you have a question, I'd certainly help you out. But yeah, I get hit up like that all the time.
Well, do me a favor. I'm going to sign off here in a minute, but I want you to stay on just for an extra second or two to talk to my producer, Ernie, because first of all, we want to be able to link to everything you're doing where you want to be linked to so people can take a look at the art and the book and all the rest. Please talk to Ernie about that. But here's the second thing. If there's anybody out there and they don't have to be the best designer in the world like you are at what you do, but someone you think we'd be interested in talking to, or that having talked to me, you think, hey, they'd enjoy talking to Frank and it would make a good guest. You can brainstorm with Ernie a little bit and give us a name or two, because we're always looking for someone interesting to talk to. Doesn't have to be famous or whatever, but we just have a good conversation about what they do. So if you have some ideas on that, talk to Ernie. But above all, let's make sure we're linking accurately to what you do, because I just want to tell everybody who's been watching this, when you turn the pages of this book online, and by the way, it's very beautifully presented online. You can make it go full screen and turn the pages, and they flow very nicely. Whoever did that for you did a beautiful thing. And it's an art book.
That's the ebook book, yes.
Yeah, but
so the hardcover book is right here, right?
Yeah, and the ebook, I'm talking about the ebook. The hardcover, if someone wants to get the hardcover, are they out there?
Yeah, I think it's on Amazon still. Yeah, it's on Amazon.
Okay, because it's a gorgeous book. I mean, if I had that sitting on my kitchen table, I'd always be looking through it. But I'm going to share this page with my wife, Jeannie, because she will love these landscapes, and they just you kind of float through your book. I love it.
Tell Ernie to give me your address. I'll send you a hard copy.
Oh, I would love that.
Help you to have one because you appreciate the effort and the work. Absolutely.
Well, I would treasure it.
I'll sign it for you. And
good.
Hey, Frank, and you don't have to spend $500,000.
Thank you very much, and I'll go with the water feature. And listen, this has been a real privilege. I love talking with you.
Yeah, you're great. By the way, like I said earlier on, I've been on a lot of these, and you're very dialed in, very organized, very good questions. Super, super great calls.
Terrific, and please greet your family for me. And I really admire your work, and this is just great. I really enjoy meeting you. I don't feel like this has been a podcast. I've just met somebody I really admire, and it's been a privilege.
I can help you as well, man. Just let me know.
Thank you. You're a very kind man. Thanks a lot. And stay on and talk to Ernie a minute.
I will. Have a good one. Thank you.
You too. Thanks a lot. Talk to you later, Steve.